Meeting to order. Thank you, Brain. No, perfect timing. We are planning to record this meeting. I believe you might get an indication on your screen. Feel free to click OK. If you have any issues, please let us know, or feel free to turn off your camera if you'd like to not be recorded. This is just because we really want to share this awesome meeting and our wonderful guests that we have today. This is a special meeting, so I see we have a few guests. If you're new to Toastmasters, our meeting structure is a little different today because we're doing a panel discussion. But we're so excited to have our special guest speakers here today, excited for our guests that are joining and our other members and fellow members that are here with us today. So my name is Sarah Orr. I'm president of Raging Toastmasters, and I'll be the moderator later for the panel. But I want to kick this over to our awesome Toastmaster Day, Miss Elizabeth Stevens. Elizabeth, please take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. So glad to have everyone here today. Welcome. As Sarah said, this is a special meeting for Raging Toastmasters Club. We will have a fabulous panel of speakers that will talk about effective leadership. Before we move forward, Shay is the Sergeant at Arms for today. Shay, are you ready?
Hey, sorry, just trying to get connected.
Okay. All right. I will hand the meeting over to Shay.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Get my windows out here. All right, so what do we need? Just a Pledge of Allegiance. I was trying to get my picture up and I can't get it to come up.
I can show it if that helps you.
Perfect. Let's see. Oh, Jen's got a flag. Okay. All right, so if you'll join me, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'll hand it over to Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you, Shay. Again, welcome to all of our guests. We're so glad that you're joining us here today for this special meeting of Raging Toastmasters Club. We meet every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central, 12 until 1 p.m. And at the end, we will give some space for our guests to speak. We hope that you will join with us. Please feel free to put your email in the chat so that our VP of membership can follow up with you after this meeting. But without any further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers, our panelists for today. I will start with Vidya Ramen. Vidya is a member of Ballantine Toastmasters Club. She is Ballantine Lunch Toastmasters Club. She is a motivational speaker. She was a former member of American General Toastmasters Club before moving to North Carolina. She is the author of the fabulous book, Lucky You. Please welcome Vidya Ramen. Our next panelist is Pauletha Young. She is currently serving as the VP of Public Relations for American General Toastmasters. She is the founder of a nonprofit organization called Kind Girls Mentoring. She is a certified coach, speaker, and trainer with John Maxwell, and she is a fabulous leader. So let's welcome Pauletha Young. Our third panelist had a meeting come up unexpectedly and is unable to join us, Charles Samuel. However, we have two phenomenal speakers that I know will share some great information with everyone. Now I will introduce the moderator for our panel. You've seen her already, Sarah Orr. She is new in her leadership journey as a Toastmaster and in the professional world. She is currently the manager of enterprise compliance at Golden Spread Electric Cooperative, a not-for-profit generation and transmission company. She's based in Amarillo, Texas. She's been with the company 10 years and is in her first management role. Sarah also started her Toastmasters journey 2.5 years ago, serving 1 year as VP of Education, and she is currently ending her term as the president of Raging Toastmasters. She's moderating this panel of excellent leaders today as we talk about effective leadership. Please welcome our moderator and panelists.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster Elizabeth, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you, panelists today. I'm so excited for everybody here, our guests and fellow Toastmasters, to hear some amazing insights from our two panelists. I know we have some different, we have like a good breadth of perspective and different backgrounds that are going to bring some great discussion about effective leadership today. So I first want to talk about the format for this panel discussion. It's going to be a little bit different, as Elizabeth said, and we are focused on effective leadership. So I'm very excited to hear Pauletha's and Vidya's insight on effective leadership and what they find makes an effective leader, what they've seen in their journey, and the insights they can bring today in our club. So for the format, we're going to start with an introduction question for each of our panelists. I'll give them time to answer the question and give a response each. And then we're going to go into some prepared questions that either of them can answer, both of them can answer, or we can have a discussion about if anybody would like to talk through things, comment on things, or provide their own thoughts for each question. Then at the end, we're going to go over a Q&A portion, and this is where we open it up to the audience. So audience members, please keep note of any questions you would like to ask either of our panelists, and we'll open it up for you. And I may ask some members directly to ask a question and invite some more questions for our panelists, because we want to get the most out of as we can out of this discussion today. We all want to be great leaders. We all want the best insight. And so please take advantage of this opportunity. For each response, we're looking for about 2 to 3 minutes, but feel free to answer the response as best you can. Or if you don't have quite 2 minutes, that's fine too. But that'll help us keep it going and make sure that we can get through all the questions. Our timer is going to indicate after I start my first question, indicate whenever we've gone about 20 minutes. So that way, by 30 minutes, we want to move on to the Q&A portion and make sure our guests have plenty of time to ask questions as well. And I believe that is all the logistics I wanted to go over first. So first, I am going to open it up with an introduction question that I would like each of y'all to answer. And Vidya, we'll start with you. So please, Vidya, tell us about your leadership journey as a Toastmaster or as a professional, and what influenced you the most during your journey.
Absolutely. I consider Toastmasters quite transformational in my life. And for those who know me, have known me for a long time, know how much of a transformation Toastmasters helped in my life. I wouldn't say it was all bad early in my journey, but I was always what I call somebody with a very strong work ethic. I worked very hard. I thought I produced results, but I always felt undervalued, underappreciated. And around that time, when I felt undervalued and I was mad at my boss for not giving me the promotion I thought I deserved that year, I joined Toastmasters. That's when I joined American General Toastmasters. And everything changed. Everything changed. I always had some leadership assignments prior to that, but it was truly transformational after Toastmasters. And I remember joining American General Toastmasters. And once I figured out that there is something called crisp, clear communication, there's something that is confidence in how you communicate. And then came my journey. And once I realized I had control versus somebody else outside me had control, I realized, why don't I control my own journey? So I say leadership begins with you. So that's where I remember on my cubicle wall, I would have a chart on everything I had to finish for Toastmasters. So speech number one, speech number two, I would check those boxes, then I would sign up for leadership roles. I said, this is my one opportunity to be the leader that I couldn't be in my workplace. And that's where I built my strength. And with every new leadership role, everything, you know, those the good old days before we had pathways, it was CC, CL, all those levels, bronze, silver, gold. I was at it. And you know, even today, sometimes I feel terrible when people miss their Toastmasters meetings. And I'm like, if this is truly your motivation to grow your leadership potential, make this your priority. Don't cave. Your growth, your self-worth means so much. And I think that's my whole journey. Right after I started Toastmasters, I honestly, something about me must have changed because the promotions kept coming and they kept coming and they kept coming. And I moved into executive roles. I moved out of Houston, moved to Charlotte. I moved to MetLife, followed by Bright House Financial. Did decently well till I decided that I'm done with the corporate world, and I went into my whole public speaking. Again, I would never have been a professional speaker if it wasn't for Toastmasters. And then wrote a book. I'm also a certified coach. So it's a long journey, but I think the trigger was joining Toastmasters in 2011.
Thank you, Vidya. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I did see that book. I'm excited to look at that lucky you. Definitely excited to open that one up. All right, Pauletha, I would like to invite you to answer the same question. So tell us about your leadership journey and what influenced you the most in that journey.
Thank you, Sarah, for that question. As I think about that, forgive me for giving you chronological orders of my answer, because I think it's going to show you how everything connects. Because when we're on a path, sometimes we don't really understand what's really happening. So as I think about it, in 2012, as Elizabeth said, I founded a nonprofit, a girls mentoring organization. My manager, when I got my review that year, he said, this is the kind of bonus. You don't want to just splurge. You want to be very thoughtful on how you spend it. And so I had been contemplating, because at that time my daughter was in middle school, and I had been contemplating mentoring, but I just was kind of playing with it. But as I met with a friend, she made me sit and think this through, and she just pretty much put me on the spot and said, well, why are you not doing it? And so I had no more excuses, and I had the money, so I went on and started the organization. And from there, 2013 is when I joined Toastmasters, because I said, if I'm going to be a leader, I want to be the best leader that I can be. And I've been hearing a lot about Toastmasters, and I said, I believe this will enhance my leadership abilities and my public speaking skills. And so this next journey in 2015 may not seem like it connects, but it really does. Because after ending a long-standing medical challenge, I discovered a naturopathic doctor who tested the energies in my body. And when she asked me if I suffered with anger, I said no, but lately I have been irritable. And she said, well, anger lies within your gallbladder, and your gallbladder is out of whack. And long story short, this sparked a desire for me to study holistic care, leading me to enroll in an online college. I thought I was going to be a holistic nutritionalist. And I was in that school until the school closed their doors due to the recession that we had. After that, leadership still, I mean, I would dream, sleep. It was just ooze out of me, and I was just hungry for it. So in 2018, I started researching. I said, I want to find the top leadership expert to help me in my journey. That's when I discovered the John Maxwell program, and I became certified in that program in 2018. Going on to 2020, right before the pandemic hit, I launched my coaching business, got my LLC. It was like just a week before. So being new to coaching, and when the pandemic hit, as you know, a lot of things changed. Well, I didn't have all the resources that I have now to help me to connect to the right people to help me to continue to move forward in that coaching business. But thankfully, I was still connected to the John Maxwell team. And in 2021 through 2022, I became a co-contributing author of a book called Rise Up, The Blueprint for Manager Success, which is 10 keys to getting things done. So that was through a collaboration with other leaders. 2022, I was laid off at AIG, so I transitioned from executive assistant for about maybe 30 plus years to personal development coach. 2024, which is the year we're in now, guess what? I am currently writing my own book, and the title is Find the Need, Then Lead. So I believe joining the John Maxwell leadership team and networking with its members had the greatest influence on me. Because before joining, I did extensive research on leadership. I was gathering valuable information. However, John Maxwell taught me that knowing and doing are not the same. So his leadership principles helped me to bridge the gap between the two, enabling me to apply my knowledge effectively. And so the common thread between all of those years was leadership and empowerment. Each step in my journey is interconnected, reflecting a consistent theme of growth, empowerment, and leadership. So from founding Kind Girls Mentoring Program to becoming a certified coach, launching a business, contributing as an author, and now writing a book, every experience has built upon the last. And this path that I'm on, it just illustrates a commitment to continuous learning, resilience, and a passion. I have a deep passion for helping others achieve their potential. So that's a little bit about my journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pauletha. Oh, wow. So good to hear. And it sounds like we're going to have some great books and more books to read. This is awesome. Because I don't know about y'all, but I love diving into the information as much as possible. So any other information, books, podcasts that y'all recommend, we'd love to hear it. Well, I did just get notified that Charles joined us. Elizabeth, I'm going to pass it back to you if you'd like to formally introduce Charles, and then I'll ask him the same question that I've asked the other two panelists.
All right. Thank you. Actually, did Charles just drop? I don't see his name listed anymore. I will introduce him anyway, just in case he comes back. Charles Samuel is a charter member of American General Toastmasters. He was previously president. He was also vice president of membership. He is an award-winning speaker. Within Toastmasters, he's won several contests at the district level. He is currently serving as a regional vice president with Corebridge Financial, and he is based in North Carolina. He was called into a meeting right before this, so I know he's been in and out, but just in case he joins again, I wanted you all to know a little bit about him. Thank you, Sarah, back to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And if Charles is able to join us, then we'll be sure to ask them the same question. But until then, we will move on because we've got lots of questions that I am excited to ask Vidya and Pauletha to learn more about effective leadership and get their take. So first, I'm going to start with you, Pauletha, because you gave a great introduction on some of the things that influence you and even some things that are outside of Toastmasters. So I'd like to tap into that. My first question would be, what do you feel is the difference between being an effective leader and just somebody that's in a leadership position?
Sorry, I forgot to take it off of mute. Got to keep that in mind. Yes, I believe an effective leader focuses on leading himself first, then others. Because who you are, it comes from before what you do. And a lot of times, I think as leaders, we get so busy in performance, doing. But I truly believe that leadership is about being before doing. And I also believe that effective leaders prioritize transformation alongside performance, profits, and talents, things of that sort. But I believe that they are attuned to the needs of others, that they practice self-discipline, they demonstrate emotional sincerity, and they seek divine guidance and ask for help when needed. I believe the true effective leadership begins with the heart. And holding a leadership position, it does grant authority, and I believe that leadership starts at that level. It's positional, of course, but that grants authority by title. But I believe true influence is earned through genuine connection and impact, which is why I am writing this book, Find the Need, Then Lead. Not just the need in your followers, your staff, but find the need within you. So self-awareness is so important in being an effective leader, because to grow yourself, you have to know yourself. And knowing what you need is so important, and not being afraid to ask for help helps us to be effective leaders rather than just, as I said, performing or having a title, but not having the tool sets, the skill sets, knowing how to connect to influence others. That's really, really impactful to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauletha. And Vidya, would you like to comment on that or add to it? Because I know you have some of those insights from just reading the summary of your book, Lucky You. Would you like to add to that?
No, it's pretty much what Pauletha said. It's positional power obviously gives you authority, but to be effective, you have to care. You have to care about the people in your department or your area. If you don't have that natural empathy, it's very hard to fake it, you know. So obviously, like Pauletha said, know who you are first and foremost, and understand the basics of emotional intelligence, and then care about your people. Because even if you're not the most competent leader, just the fact that you care ensures that your team is inspired and motivated and driven to do it, and they'll even help you. But if you show up in a way where you're only looking upwards and not down at your team, there are many leaders who make this colossal mistake, which I'm not saying you have to aim up, but also don't forget the people in your directs, right? Make sure you're there for them. Make sure you make time for them. Show them, how do you demonstrate care? You got to make time for your people. So that's effective leadership, because the moment your team realizes you don't care, that's when everything falls apart. The morale goes, productivity goes, everything goes. And then people saying, you know what, I'll just punch in and punch out, who cares, right? We don't want that. A good leader should show they care, because then your directs will show up for you, but you have to show up for them in the first place. So That's the whole effective leadership thing. Obviously, you have to lead by example. You have to be a role model. You have to inspire. People don't, and I know sometimes I've been in those positions where I feel when the work gets very busy, you just focus on getting tasks done, and then you forget who you are. You forget that you're a leader. There are people dependent on you. They need your vision, your direction. So yes, busy is true. Yes, your boss is waiting on a report, but take the time to say, I'm going to carve out time for my team. Friday afternoon is my team time, and work can wait, right? But people don't do that. And I have had good managers and not so good managers. And the ones I labeled as good as the ones who made time for me. So that makes them effective. And then I feel like, oh, I have to go all out and help them. That's the difference.
Thank you for that. And I'd like to follow up on that, then, because there are challenges, and you have some of us, as you mentioned, we can get carried away with just doing the job and forget really what our role is as leaders and how to be effective leaders and showing that we care. So what would be some, I guess, tidbits for how we can keep our focus whenever we, can get carried away so easily with the day-to-day job, to make sure that we're always focused on being a good leader and an effective leader, in those challenging times?
It starts with prioritization, right? It's not good enough just to get promoted and have a fancy title next to your name. Your priority should be, I need an effective team. I need a team that cares about me and the direction I'm setting for them. So first and foremost, what I used to do is, and not everybody has to do this, like on a Friday, on a Sunday afternoon, I would say, what are my top 3 priorities? The top 3, one will always be my team. What does my team need? How much time do I give them? And never forget, there's one thing, it's my priorities to keep my boss happy and help him. But I also had to make sure that my team had everything they need from me. If I fill up the whole calendar of the week with just what I need to impress my boss, I'm not much of a leader, because I have to help the people below. I have to be transparent with them as much as possible. You can't be completely transparent, but to a certain extent. But it all starts with prioritization, carving out time on your calendar for them. And when you tell them I have an open door policy, follow through. Make sure it's open door. And if people want to share openly, you don't go and relay that information. Hold the trust. Your people, if they can share and you hold trust, I mean, that makes you so effective. You will actually know what's failing and what will help you succeed. So yeah, if you want to be a good leader, prioritize your team. Yes, there's work. Yes, you may have to work on the weekends to finish some things, but your team comes first.
Good.
Thank you. Yes, great insight. Something that seems so obvious, but we don't always think about it, as prioritization is so important with what we do as leaders and, in many things that we do in life. I would like to ask what y'all's biggest challenge has been, or what you think the biggest challenge is of being a leader. And Pauletha, I'll start with you. Do you see, or what do you feel is the biggest challenge for leaders?
First of all, I want to start my answer by asking, either by show of hands or putting in the chat, how many leaders do we have on the Zoom call? And I ask that question because a lot of times parents forget to acknowledge that they are leaders. And in so many areas, we are leaders, and we sometimes only think about the corporate world. But my biggest challenge as a leader was learning not to hide my humanity. I used to hesitate to reveal my emotions or weaknesses, and it became very easy to suppress them until it started to affect my health. And I learned, though, as a result, how to balance transparency with being a good example. And now I feel secure enough to be vulnerable. Notice that I did mention the word balancing my transparency, because there's a time where, or a place to be transparent or vulnerable, and there's a setting where it's appropriate. You can't tell everybody, as they say, your tea. You can't spill your tea to everybody, so to speak. However, it is important that you give yourself grace as a leader and know that you don't know it all and you are human. It's okay if you are sad. It's okay if you are, not where you want to be in life. Give yourself grace. And that's what I had to learn how to do, because it was starting to affect my health. And when we suppress our emotions, as I told you earlier, that the interconnection of my journey with the naturopathic doctor, I learned that feelings buried alive never die, and that it's so important that we have people we can confide in, be accountable to, that we can grow with, that will not judge us. We're in a safe environment. And those are some of the things that I've learned as a leader, and I'm passing it on to others. And I hope that helps each one of you as well.
Thank you. That's such good insight. Something also that we might not think about, having grace for yourself. That's very, very intriguing. And Vidya, do you agree? Do you have other thoughts or another challenge that you want to highlight?
Right. First of all, Pauletha is absolutely spot on about leading yourself. And she's so right when she says we don't consider ourselves leaders when we're technically leading ourselves, our families, our communities, and we don't give ourselves enough credit. And so since Pauletha answered the personal leadership and, how to give yourself grace, let me address, say, corporate leadership, in your workplace leadership. Uh, One of the biggest challenges leaders have, and I feel for them, I worked, uh, never forget that leaders are just like you. They just managed to get the title and they are your boss, right? They also wear their pants one leg at a time. Remember that, remember their humanity, because sometimes as you go up the ladder, you are caught up in a whirlwind of chaos. It's uncertainty. You never know when the layoffs are coming. There is an AI, let's say, is coming into our frame of reference, and that's when there is a lot of challenges. And people are remember, our hierarchy is very narrow. People fall out of the hierarchy chase, and there's a lot of political dynamics and tension at the top. So they are stressed. Leaders are stressed. So during times of uncertainty, it's even worse. So that's one of the biggest challenges, to deal with uncertainty. And at the time you are struggling to find your foothold, you have to make sure your team has their foothold. And how much information do you share with them? So I think that's where your emotional intelligence, your empathy, your active listening comes into play. Remember, if you're feeling challenged as a leader, they are feeling even more challenged. So you have to kind of become a coach, maybe a therapist, give them some time. But that's one of the challenges, dealing with uncertainty, dealing with times of, a lot of political drama that happens, positioning that happens at the top. So when we get mad at our bosses, when I was in a junior level position, I used to get a little annoyed because I didn't have a full picture of what they were dealing with. So I would say give grace to your bosses sometimes. They're dealing with a lot. Not all, I won't say some bosses are just in it for themselves, but for the most part, they are good. They're trying. And sometimes you can get a better manager just by telling them how you would like to be led. We don't have those honest conversations. If your manager is of the type who makes it safe for you, keeps that safety for you to share information, let them know what works for you, what doesn't work, what inspires, what motivates you, and then they can adapt to your needs, right? You don't have to feel, oh, nobody gets me, nobody knows me. They're just humans, just like you. They just managed to climb up the ladder. But also be smart yourself when you watch your manager. Be observant. I always feel the times I struggled in my career, I did not pay attention. So I tell everybody now who I coach, pay attention. Are you observing the room? Are you reading micro expressions? Are you reading what works, what doesn't work? Because we're so caught up in our own head. We say, I just want to sound smart. I want to sound intelligent. I want to get that promotion. It doesn't work that way. You have to pay attention to understand what is the dynamic in play here. Who likes what? Who doesn't like what? Pay attention. So I keep coming back to emotional intelligence. It's all about listening, paying attention, observing. for you to be groomed as a leader, even if you don't have a sponsor, a mentor. If you pay attention, you'll know exactly how to lead and behave like a leader.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for that. That very intriguing. Yes, emotional intelligence. I can definitely see as I'm just in the beginning of my leadership journey, that's been the biggest thing that I'm like, oh man, I really need to embrace this and get practice it more because it really is practicing.
Yes.
But I would like to shift gears just a little bit, just because we're about halfway through. I would like to know, how has Toastmasters helped you with your, or where do you see it influencing into the professional world or translating into the professional world? Because in Toastmasters, we have leadership opportunities. We also just have opportunities, as you mentioned, Vidya, just taking on roles and just kind of taking on that responsibility. So what do you think translates to the professional world? And I guess we'll start with you, Vidya, and we'll go on to Pauletha.
Right. Toastmasters is no different. Now, the only thing is nobody's directing you, you're directing yourself. Just like you have difficult people in the workplace, you have difficult people to work with in Toastmasters. I'll give you that. When you're putting together a speech contest, when you're trying to organize, you'll have all kinds of issues. You'll have political battles. People will argue with you on an evaluation. There are, how well do you manage conflicts, right? All this starts in a Toastmaster leadership position. There are always going to be complainers. So this is why I feel this is a real world area, Toastmasters, where you get to practice that. It's not like, of course, the Toastmasters membership generally tends to be, it's pretty sweet. They'll applaud your speeches and all that. But when it comes to leadership, when it comes to getting things done, creating events like this one, you have to work with people, and then not everybody is going to align with you. They may challenge your decision-making capacity. How do you manage that? This is what I gleaned and gained from my Toastmasters journey. I remember I used to drive all around Houston visiting clubs and people not being ready for the area director, or a contest going completely awry. And I'm thinking, I learned real life lessons, how to deal with stressful situations. And that's what Toastmasters helped me with. So if people think like, oh, I have to just go give a speech. It's important to go give a speech. But, the other thing that I learned from Toastmasters is evaluations. We don't realize this. Speech evaluation preps you to become a good feedback provider. Did we all not learn the sandwich method? So when I became a manager and I had to provide feedback, I learned it from Toastmasters. I knew how to layer the good with the bad, right? There's a lot to be learned from Toastmasters. So the more you do, the more you get. It's all, I say, learn by doing is Toastmasters completely. So everything I learned in terms of how to get along with people, how to work with people, how to collaborate, it's more servant leadership than maybe a corporate job, but still, it set me up for success in leadership. So yes, kudos to Toastmasters for grooming me. I didn't have a mentor, which is my biggest regret. I should say Oprah Winfrey was my mentor, which I'm like, I didn't go recruit any mentors in my life, but my biggest regret. But I learned a lot by watching people and participating in Toastmasters.
Thank you. And Pauletha, then what would you like to add to that, or what do you think translates the most from Toastmasters to the professional world?
I think there are several things, but as Vidya already has stated about the communication skills, the leadership development. Think about team leadership. When you serve as a club officer, like a president or a vice president of education, that involves leading a team, setting goals and delegating tasks and motivating members. Will you ever learn how to motivate members? You will learn it in Toastmasters. And I think that it's paralleling managerial roles in the workplace, even project management. Roles such as organizing meetings, events, speech contests. It mirrors project management tasks, including planning, coordinating, and executing. And one of the most things that stands out to me is the mentoring and coaching piece, as well as strategic thinking, problem solving. When you're addressing and resolving the club challenges, that's fostering problem solving skills, and that they are directly transferable to resolving issues in a professional environment. So I believe that our roles that we play, I'm learning even more, as preparing for this panel, not to take anything that I do lightly in Toastmasters. I don't care if it's just the all counter. There is some skill sets that I am learning, and I can build upon them to help me in the professional world as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Pauletha. Some great insights. And I do want to move on so we have some time for questions from the audience, but I do want to reiterate some important aspects that we kind of talked about today. We talked about how important emotional intelligence is today. We talked about bringing your humanity and your caring to leadership. Talked about how Toastmasters is a great way to practice all those skills that you use as an effective leader and just as an effective human in your everyday life. I think there's just so many tidbits and great things from this conversation. So I would like to open it up to the audience then. I hope you all have some great questions to ask either of our panelists. Feel free to ask to either of them directly or just open up for them both to answer. I'll start with Annalisa. Yes, please let us know.
Ladies, your inspiration to both of you have been a big inspiration. Thank you. And I'm really glad you tied in how Toastmasters has helped you. My question to you is in your time as a Toastmaster, have you ever thought that or wished that your club or your district focused on helping you learn how to deal with your, what was it you said? When you have issues, the conflict management? Because I think we hint on it with our evaluations, but as leaders, like you said, there's always going to be a time in one of our clubs, the potential's there, you're going to have conflict. And not necessarily conflict, just a difference of opinion that could potentially turn into conflict. Number one, what did you learn in Toastmasters to help with that? And do you think Toastmasters should focus a little bit more on that to help our members? Either one of you can go.
I mean,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Oh, Pauletha, go ahead.
What I was thinking about is, how in Toastmasters we have the different levels, and then each level has a certain project, the purpose of the projects that we're to complete and everything. Mine is the visionary leadership style. So as a visionary leader, there's a lot of creativity that I have to use, especially if I'm having to address a conflict resolution, or with the nonprofit, I'm dealing with teens. And as you know, adolescents, girls, it's very challenging. It requires a lot of patience. Not only do I have to have patience with them, but their parents as well. So there's a lot of things where with the project directions, it tells you what to focus on. And so as a visionary leader style, assessing the situation before I give feedback is very important. So evaluations help us to assess the situation, to understand the context of the problem, and then to evaluate that, and then focus on the specific needs of either the team or the individual. And then think about, is this individual facing a crisis? Are they undergoing a change? Are they striving for innovation? So as Vidya mentioned about emotional intelligence, it's so important that I have that as a leader, because my team, they're going to have, life is going to happen. And so I need to be empathetic and be able to assess the situation, understand the context surrounding it, and then be empathetic and still provide the solution. And then I may have to go further and determine if there's some short-term and long-term goals to help them to align their vision or their goals and to provide clear direction for them. So knowing your team basically is important, and I won't take up any more time. I'll let Vidya finish that.
Thank you.
Right. I haven't studied the latest programs in pathways, Annalisa, so I can't honestly answer intelligently. But I do know they have different pathways, like we heard about visionary leadership. Conflict resolution is not a bad topic to teach in the leadership track, at least in the old leadership track. It's good to know. And the other thing that I just naturally did with Toastmaster issues versus work issues, right? Work issues we tend to take more personally. With Toastmaster issues, I either would just do it all myself. Like, I wouldn't, like if somebody says I can't help you at the last minute, I would just pick up the load and just do it myself. And somehow work around a conflict. Little bit of a resiliency comes in because I don't take it too personally. I feel like, but at work we do. And I think that little impersonal touch I kept for Toastmasters saved me maybe during crisis points. But I think conflict resolution will help people if they just know basically how do you deal with a situation, like when you walk in, your question should be, do I want to be right or do I want to be happy? And then decide how you want to work in a tough, challenging situation. But any extra coaching in leadership topics, which by the way, I teach conflict resolution now, but in any leadership pathway, it's a good topic to have for people to know how to work with people. Working with people is basically leadership, right? It's how to get along with other people. It's all about communication and connection, which is all Toastmasters, really. You communicate well to make sure somebody doesn't misunderstand you. That's all these misunderstandings lead to conflict. So if you learn how to message effectively, less chances with the right tone of voice, you'll do better.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you. Great insight there. I think a big thing that kind of y'all both touched on was not avoiding the conflict. Try to resolve it with a vision or resolve it by talking with them. And Braden, you have your hand up. Do you have a question for our panelists?
Yes, I do. Thank you both for being here. First of all, my question goes towards, I am a father of 3. I have 2 boys and a little girl. She's my youngest, and as you can imagine, she's probably spoiled more than the other 2. But my question goes to about raising children today to be good leaders. I mean, I don't want to raise 3 kids that go into the world wanting to get to a certain point and maybe just thinking that's okay. I want them to work as hard as they can to get as far as they want to. So my question to you is, what are some good things to teach my kids to be good leaders? And if you have anything that goes specific towards my daughter, I, as a man, have some good things to teach my boys, but not having the experience, obviously, as a woman in both the career world or anything like that. I would love to hear your views as far as raising a little girl to turn into a powerful, independent, and just leadership-driven woman when she gets that age.
If I can suggest, have you heard of a book called, or an organization called Love and Logic? Okay, they have a book called Parenting with Love and Logic. I highly recommend that book. In that book, it has the different parenting styles. There's the helicopter, there's the drill sergeant, and there's the consultant parenting. They have one that's elevated of the helicopter parent, but the helicopter parent, as you know, they hover over their children. They don't want them hurt. They don't, basically, they think they're loving the child by hovering, protecting and guarding from pain and things of that sort, not realizing they are actually hindering and stunting growth. And even at, of course, you're going to do it as age appropriate. I don't know how old your daughter is, but do things that are age appropriate. Can I ask you how old your daughter is?
Of course, she's 5.
5. Okay. So at the age of 5, the consultant parenting style tells you to give her choices. Allow her on a small scale, because what you're doing is teaching her how to make good decisions. And when you do that, it's helping her to think for herself, because if we do all the thinking for them, like the drill sergeant parents is barking orders, telling them what to do, and basically thinking for them. And so when they come up into a real problem as they get older in life, it's like, what do I do? Because they're so used to being told what to do. This is how, but let them figure it out by themselves. And of course, you're going to be there to guide. And as she develops those skills to be able to make those good decisions, you're teaching her how to be a responsible adult. But it's starting way in her toddler years, and it's going to carry on into her adolescent years and on into adulthood. And you will be so pleased with the decisions. There's one case study that really stood out to me in that book, was a high schooler that wanted to go to celebrate his high school. Long story short, didn't have transportation. Parents had plans for their vehicles. He decided not to go when his father told him to go with his best friend, because he knew his best friend was drinking and driving. And because he chose not to go, that young man saved his life. He made a decision based on the facts that he knew. That friend of his drove off a mountain cliff and killed about 5 to 6 of their friends. So he taught them, they started early, teaching them how to giving them the opportunity to make choices, and then making good decisions, being responsible, and it carried over, and it can save our children's life. Get that book.
That was such a powerful answer, Pauletha. Really, really good. So, Braden, the only thing I can tell you is parenting is by far the hardest job. It's the hardest job I've ever had. And there's no right way or wrong way, but I do agree in terms of letting your children make decisions. So the helicopter parenting model is not encouraged. Maybe when they're young, they need all the supervision till they get their own identities. But solving problems for them and not letting them fail is probably the biggest mistake you can make as a parent. You got to let them fail. That makes them resilient. That makes them deal with situations. Only yesterday, 2 days ago in my Toastmasters club, I was asked about participation trophies. Like, what did I think about participation trophies? And this is what I said. For me, it's a hard no. Because what happens is you feel like no matter what I do, I'm going to get a trophy, right? But the real world is horrible. The real world that they walk into, nobody's handing them a trophy. So in a way, don't you want to prep and prime them for the world they're going to enter after college or school? So I would say it's a balance between, I love the parenting styles, not the drill sergeant, doesn't work. You have to have that emotional connection. You got to nurture, you got to love, but don't helicopter them. So what about that optimal one that Pauletha talked about, consultative, as you get older? But I think children need to be given a safe space to fail. They need to take chances. So I regret many of the choices I made when my kids were growing up. So I can't say I did everything right. So I made lots of mistakes because my adult children now tell me I wasn't great in many things. So I've been told repeatedly. So we just have to deal with it. I could have done better. I didn't know how. But it's so good that you're asking that question now. So good luck. Best wishes.
Thank you.
And if I can add, the helicopter parent produces entitlement children. the world struggles with entitled adults. So just want to caution all of us.
I was on mute. Thank you. Thank you so much for that question, Freda, and amazing answers. Really, the more you spoke about it, the more I'm like, okay, I need to definitely make sure I'm raising my son right. But also, it does kind of translate a little bit to what we're trying to do here in Toastmasters. You talk about like a safe place to fail. I do feel like this is a safe place to fail for us as, you know, children at heart trying to become leaders, and we can translate that to our children, growing them to be leaders, giving them that safe space to fail. I love that. And I know we're getting close to end of time. Pauletha, Vidya, thank you so much for being here. I do want to ask, if you don't mind, could you share some of those resources that you recommended here in our meeting today? I would love to pass it along to the others in this that were in this meeting. If we want to look up some of those books you recommended or any other resources, that would be wonderful if you have the time. I appreciate it. I do want to pass it over to Elizabeth in case you had any other closing thoughts you wanted to share before we open it up to guests.
Nothing from me. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. And a big thanks, a big round of applause for our two guest panelists. Thank you so much for being here. Before we close, Vidya, Pauletha, did y'all have any comments you'd like to share about the meeting today, the club, and how things went?
Oh, it was so wonderful. Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I love speaking to fellow Toastmasters. And I was like, the moment Elizabeth asked me, I said, yes, I'll do it, you know. Anyway, I just wanted to quickly comment on Braden's question for what can he do for his daughter. Showcase all kinds of movies where women are leaders. That's all she needs, exposure to material where women are in a leading position. I grew up in India and we had a woman prime minister in the 70s. And I tell you, that was so inspirational for me. So it's good to show women in leadership positions to your daughter when they're young. So in a way, they feel like I can be that too. Yeah. That's it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pauletha, anything you'd like to share as we end?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. One of the things that I thought about when I was asked to do this is my why for joining Toastmasters. And I remember that when I started speaking, I used to speak to inform, but now I speak to transform. So having this platforms really helps me to continue to improve my public speaking skills and listening skills on a weekly basis. So I know that sometimes when we graduate out of our certain levels and we start getting promotions and things of that sort, sometimes people feel like they don't need Toastmasters any longer. But I believe that it helps us to continue to be the best versions of ourselves.
Thank you so much. That's great words of wisdom from both of you. I'll open it up to anybody else, any of our guests today. Would you like any thoughts you'd like to give on this meeting? Change to a different view so I can see everybody. Annalisa, did you have any thoughts? Our upcoming district director, what did you think today?
I really enjoyed this. I think it's extremely helpful, very applicable to anyone joining, whether you're a Toastmaster or thinking about being a Toastmaster or just want to be a better leader. Frankly, when I joined Toastmasters, I had no inspiration whatsoever to be a leader until I became the president for the first time to my club, for my home club. And then I started getting the inkling of being a leader, because actually being a leader scared the crud out of me, frankly. But ladies, this was great having you. You picked some wonderful speakers. Kudos to the club for picking some exceptionally wonderful presenters. They nailed it. The questions were really good. Sarah, Elizabeth, great job as being TM and moderator. You guys really hit some really good questions. Very thought-provoking. Again, applicable questions to your audience, not something that's very specific to you. And Brandon, I would have never thought to ask a parenting question, but that was well done. kudos to you for that. Well done. I really hope you guys do this again. I encourage you to keep offering these special events, and we'll see what we can do to share more with our district on this, because this is definitely very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Annalisa.
Annalisa.
Thank you. And we are at time, so if anybody has to hop off, feel free to. I'm going to stay on a little bit longer, and Pauletha, Vidya, I don't know what your schedules are like. Y'all are welcome to hop off or stay on if you'd like. If there's anybody else who has questions or would like to share your thoughts, feel free to speak up now. And we will, if anybody could share your email and where you're from, we would love to reach out after this meeting and follow up with any information if you're new to Toastmasters. But thank you all.
Thank you. I see that Pauletha has
You.
put in all her book recommendations.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Annalisa.
Bye, Annalisa.
Bye.
Thank you all for a great
participating.
thank you for a great
Bye.
event. That was awesome. I really
That was
enjoyed it.
really good.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Jen. Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Well, we'll hop off then if we're at the end. All right, Elizabeth, did you
I
have?
want to say to Vidya, I didn't realize you and I have a lot in common.
We have a what in common?
A lot in common in
Common.
regards to our paths that we're
Yes.
on. And I'm glad you shared the LinkedIn information. Is that you that shared that?
Which
Yeah,
one?
I see it. Your LinkedIn, I
Yes,
see
I
it.
shared my LinkedIn URL. Yeah.
Thank you
But
for
you know,
that.
I
I'm
wanted to, I just like you, I am Maxwell certified too.
see, I did not know that. See, I should have known that leadership DNA that he has is like so easy to but I really enjoyed your presentation, your answers, and everything was just spot on.
Oh, same here, Pauletha. Really. You know, when people speak from the heart, you can tell. So I felt that with you. So
Thank you. Likewise.
Yeah. Thank you all so much for participating. We've really appreciated you giving this time and such great responses, and just all of everything I think is applicable. And I like how when Pauletha started talking about the personal challenges in leadership, Vidya said, I'm going to do it from a professional perspective, so we could hear two different points of view in different areas that we could still apply to our lives. So thank you for effective listening, because you listen to each other and you were like, okay, I'm gonna do a different spin on this, or I'm going to add to this instead of duplicating what the other person said. I thought that was great.
Thank you.
we appreciate you, Elizabeth.
Sure do.
And I was just for Braden, your question about your daughter. Whatever you're doing for your sons, do that for your daughter, and vice versa. I don't think that there should be a separation. Yet, like Vidya said, having women in leadership that she can see is wonderful. But the lessons that are important to a woman in leadership are also important to a man in leadership. And so sharing those different practices and different skills that maybe your boys are learning are things that your daughter can learn too, to help her.
Yeah. And if I can add to what Elizabeth said, your son is going, because we have the masculine and feminine energy works in both. But many times with the boys, you're gonna have that, masculine energy and operative more so. And so with your daughter, she'll learn that she can still operate in the business, in the boardroom, using her feminine energy to get things done and, still be successful, just as your son, but just being aware of that. Because like I said, girls, especially in their adolescence, you will see the difference in their emotional states. However, boys do still have feelings. So I know as I was growing up, they taught boys not to show their feelings or emotions, but it's okay, to create that safe environment for them too, because you don't want them suppressing, and then it starts to affect their health as well. And I know it's hard for men to open up and be vulnerable a lot of times, but sometimes it's because that's the way they were taught. Don't you let me see you crying. That's weak. It's not weak. You're human. It's okay.
Very true. I do want to say, Elizabeth, thank you so much for inviting our panelists today and introducing them. It was so great to meet you both, and I really appreciate y'all being here today. Such great information you shared.
Thank you, Sarah. We really
So
appreciate it.
much. I enjoyed everyone.
Oh, and Ryan, are you from American General Toastmasters, or are you a guest today?
No, I'm just a guest. I saw your email and I just thought, oh, this is nice to just have a meeting and see how I've heard of Toastmasters before. I used to work at FM Global and I was a part of SWE, the Society of Women Engineers, all the way back through college, like through at Iowa State. I'm a Cyclone, so I got my degree in chemical engineering, and yeah, it was a really good program to be part of because half of my chemical engineering department was women. So I was like, hey, if you can't beat them, join them. So, but it was great, and I learned a lot of Toastmasters from the SWE department, or the what are they called, the social group, the ESG group, and yeah, it was a very positive experience. And then I'm at AIG now as an account risk engineer, and I saw the email come through, and I thought, yeah, this would be great, and it was a lot of great speakers, and just the heartfelt, the emotional intelligence that you mentioned, I think is really important, Sarah, because a lot of people feel like they shouldn't or can't bring that to their workplace, and I think it creates, I call it cognitive dissonance. I'm a big psychology person, but it creates sort of this brain barrier where more of like a shell where you're just like compartmentalizing something that doesn't necessarily need to be compartmentalized, and it can be difficult to get out of that. What should I do? What did I do? What do I need to do? Right. And just sort of practicing feeling mindful and feeling compassionate on others and feeling willing to listen to the music, I guess, of everyone else, and just kind of feel it's okay to feel like you're in the current and just, lay back. And but other times it's okay to be a leader, and it's okay to say something and feel heard and not feel like bullied, like you need to underscore something because someone else said it, or it's okay to feel unique and honest. And I think that's what Toastmasters represents the best, is that feeling of balance. So that's really cool.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for those comments. It's good to have you here. Welcome. And
Thanks.
we'll be sure to follow up with any more
Yeah.
information on Toastmasters. I'd love for you to come see, a more general meeting just so you can see kind of the what it's like. But I'm so glad you got to see this today.
Yeah, look forward to it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna call it to an end just because I do see people have other things going on today, but I appreciate everybody who stayed. And thank you again, Vidya.